करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
We'll begin with the poem Olive Tree.
The olive tree, said an ancient hermit bending half in prayer upon his knee, oil I need for midnight watching, I desire an olive tree. Then he took a tender sapling, planted it before his cave, spread his trembling hands above it, as his benison he gave. But he thought the rain it needeth, that the root may drink and swell. God, I pray thee send thy showers, so as gentle shower fell. Lord, I ask for beams of summer, cherishing this little child. Then the dripping clouds divided, and the sun looked down and smiled. Sended frost to braze his tissues, oh my God, the hermit cried. Then the plant was bright and hoary, but at even song it died. Went the hermit to a brother sitting in his rocky cell. Thou an olive tree possesseth. How is this, my brother, tell? I have planted one and prayed, not for sunshine, nor for rain. God hath granted each petition, yet my olive tree hath slain. Said the other, I entrusted to its guard my little tree. He who made knew what it needed, better than a man like me. Laid I on him no conditions, fixed no ways and means, so I wonder not my olive thriveth, whilst the olive tree did die. Sabine Baringaud.
See, the central verse of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 22. It is the geometrical center of the entire Bhagavad Gita. Very famous, immortal verse. Whenever Gita is remembered, the Charama Shloka, Ananyash, the Sarvadharman Parityaja, and this one, which is Ananyash Chintayantam, these two are always remembered. I mean, these are the slokas that first come to mind whenever Bhagavad Gita is being talked about. That verse says, Ananyash Chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhyuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. To those whoever they are worshipping me with Ananya Chinta. Ananya Chinta means without any other thought. Chinta means thought. Anya Chinta means other thought. Ananya Chinta means no other thought. If a devotee is going to worship me with no other thought and he is ever seeking union with me, I will take care of their yoga and kshema. This is God's promise. You will find this quotation in Life Insurance Corporation also, yoga and kshema, yoga kshemam vahamyaham. This can be interpreted at various levels. And from an extreme devotee point of view, this can be very literally taken also, and it is correct. Whatever is required for a person, I will guarantee that it happens. The onus is upon me, says the Lord. And if you literally take this and look at the lives of various devotees who have lived up to the principles given in this verse, that is, they are having this Ananya Chinta. For example, there is Sant Sena. Sena is a barber in Maharashtra, a great devotee. And he had no other thought except the thought of Lord Panduranga, like that it is. And the story is that when he was not present for the duty of the king, it was the Lord himself who went in the form of the barber to the king. This is the story. And very inspiring stories like that of various devotees and various places and various points of time this has happened. So those who ever they don't even think of their family, they have completely dedicated themselves to the Lord, as it were. It becomes then his duty to take care of whatever is required for him. This is a state of a sort of a jnani. It's absolute surrender to the Lord. Now, if a person were to try to surrender to the Lord with the idea that he will take care of his family, then that is not a proper thing, or that's how not Lord will function. For you, he has given the other verse, Karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. You better do your duty. You have to do your duty, and your right is in doing the duty only, not in the fruits of action. So we have to understand when we read these verses also in Bhagavad Gita as to who is the adhikari in each and every verse that it is being talked about. So surrender, when we talked about earlier, is applicable for all of us at various levels. So when we discuss this idea of surrender, it is not only of a person at a very highest level, we can also surrender at our level, we said. A person who is an absolute jnani, who is in a very high state of renunciation, who is an extreme bhakta, he can also surrender, and his surrender is of a very high level. But a person who is at our level doing karma in the world, caught up in samsara, caught up in household duties and various other, we are also given that choice to surrender. That is why we said that everybody is adhikari as far as surrender is concerned. The method of surrender will be different and the effect of it will be different, but you have every right to do that. That is why in verse, I think 56 of chapter 18, he says, Sarva karmanyapi sada. Sarva karmanyapi sada means even though doing all actions, mat vipashaya, you can oblate it to me and do. In verse 66, he says, Sarva dharman parityaja. Renouncing all dharmas, you surrender. So, one is saying surrender that you can do by doing all actions. Another is by saying that you renounce everything and surrender. That means the method of surrender is definitely different, but all are eligible for surrender. This is a sanction that God Himself has given, as it were. Now, why I am bringing that in the context of olive tree, the story is simple here. This poem is also a very beautiful poem. It finds place, I think, in Vedanta treatise also in I think, the strength of emotions when it is being related to bhakti. There are two hermits. The story is about two hermits, particularly one hermit. He desires olive oil for his midnight prayers. That means he needs a lamp, and for which olive oil is required. He is somewhere in the cave, so he takes a sapling and plants that sapling there, and he blesses the sapling. But immediately he thinks that the sapling, for it to grow, for the roots to grow, it needs rain. So he immediately petitions to God for rain, and rain comes. Immediately he says that the plant needs sunlight, sunshine. And so he again prays to God. The clouds go away and the sunshine comes. Immediately he thinks that the tissues of the plant needs frost, and he asks for frost to God, and that prayer is also immediately granted. But what happens is that in the evening the plant dies. He is disappointed and he goes to his brother, who is another hermit, who is sitting in a rocky cell, and there he sees that the olive tree there has grown nicely. So he is asking, how is it that you are possessing an olive tree? Because I planted a sapling and I asked for summer, I asked for rain, I asked for frost, everything I asked, and God granted each petition. But my olive tree died, but yours is there still growing or grown well. How is it? To which the other hermit says that I entrusted my tree to the Creator. He who made knew better than a man like me. So I did not put any conditions on him, and therefore it is not surprising that my olive tree is living and your olive tree is dead. This is a simple story there. Said an ancient hermit bending half in prayer upon his knee, oil I need for midnight watching, I desire an olive tree. So mark this word that I desire an olive tree. That means when we are talking about a person who has completely surrendered himself to Lord, who has no will of himself at all, he is the person who is being talked about in chapter 9 verse 22 as a devotee who has ananya chinta. Ananya chinta, no other thought. Now, this person, when he is asking for an olive tree, it is not wrong. Because after all, he is asking it for a good purpose, that he wants to probably use that lamp for his prayers, for his reading, whatever be it. It is not something wrong. So, in fact, when he is having a clarity, he is having a clarity in his thought that I need olive tree. And what is the purpose of that? I need olives for getting olive oil. That is his purpose. So therefore, in chapter 7, I think, Gita, Lord says, Dharma aviruddho bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshava. I am the desire in the beings also which is not opposed to Dharma. Again, this can be interpreted at various levels, but at a very basic level, any dharmic desire that you have is also in alignment with what his will is. So therefore it is not wrong. I am that only, he says. So a person who is having some clarity in his thought as to what he wants and he is seeking olive tree, that is perfectly okay. Now we are deviating, this may not be the theme of the poem, but it is worthwhile to note that even in terms of what you want to achieve in this world, you better be clear of what you want. The moment you have a thought, a desire, that desire has a potency to seek fulfillment. And that is the driving force which will make the universe rearrange itself to get that fulfilled. Swami Ramatirtha talks about this, I think, in his chapter Fulfillment of All Desires. In the chapter of Fulfillment of All Desires, he is talking about this, which is what they show in this documentary, The Secret. Most of you might have seen it. Rhonda Vine's book also is there, and this CD, and it's there in YouTube also. So they are talking about a creative process as to how your desires will get fulfilled, and they give these 3 steps. Ask, believe and receive. This is the 3 things that is given there. So ask is the first step. Ask means you must be very clear of what you are asking. You cannot go to a restaurant and say that bring me something. The waiter will not be able to execute your order. Or you cannot ask whatever is the best in your restaurant, bring. Everything is best in the restaurant only. Or you cannot say whatever that person is eating, give me that. You cannot say that. So if you are not clear with that order, then the person who is waiting to serve you cannot do anything. You may take time, but you be very clear. Whatever you want to order, dosa or South Indian or Chinese food or North Indian food, you order that. So once you give the order, what do you do in the restaurant? You do not go to the kitchen every now and then to see that whether your order is getting cooked. You don't have any doubt about it, right? You may be chatting with your friends, or you may be watching a match there in the television, or you will be seeing your mobile phone, whatever you are doing, because you know that having given an order, it is going to take some time. They will prepare that and serve it to you. 1% of doubt also you don't have that it is not going to happen. So this is the second stage, that there is a belief that it is happening, and this is exactly what happens with reference to universe also. So Swami Ramatirtha says universe acts as the genie of that Aladdin's lamp. So the genie only says that your wish is my command. So the moment you wish something, moment you think about something, that thought force has that potency to pull that object of desire towards itself. This is the law of attraction, this is the law of affinity, this is the law of love. It is going to happen. But the human mind does not allow the things to happen in its own natural way. What does it do is that it gets severely obsessed about the result of that. Immediately it wants, and constantly it is thinking and craving about that fruit of action constantly. So it is like when you go and disturb that cook or the waiter again and again in the restaurant, eventually your order will only get delayed. That is what will happen. Exactly like that. The moment you are craving about something, you are only delaying that object of desire reaching you. In simple terms, it's attachment, nothing else. Attachment at various levels. Here, attachment to the result, the fruit of action. So, Swami Ramatita gives that example that a person is sitting in the back seat of the car and he is opening the door and requesting his friend to come in. He wants to help the friend. But he says, come in, come in, come in, come in. He's keeping on saying coming in, come in, but the friend is not coming in. Why? He is sitting in the edge of the seat and not allowing that friend to come in. All that he needs to do is open the door, say come in and move inside. The moment you move inside, you create space so that the friend can come in. Exactly like that. The moment you desire something, you have to rise above that desire, create a space for the object of desire to come in. That the mind does not allow to do because it has the tendency to crave. We just uploaded our video on nature of human mind today. You can go through it also. It was taken about 8 months back only, that same video, where we talk about various qualities of mind. One of the deadly feature of the mind is this craving or attachment. So your own craving only stops the object of desire from reaching you. So therefore you need to rise above it, and therefore at your level to rise above the desire, what is given as karma. So siddhir bhavati karmaja. Karma, success is born of action. So what is creating that success is this thought plus the action that you deserve. So therefore it is said in Vedanta treatise, one of the quotes is that you get in life not what you desire but what you deserve. Deserve is nothing but desiring plus working towards it. So when you ask and you believe that it is going to happen, and then you create room for the receiving, for which gratitude is a very important aspect, then this is the creative process that is given there. In this poem, this person is actually desiring nicely, let us say, that he wants a olive tree. Then what he does? Then he took a tender sapling, planted it before his cave, spread his trembling hands above it as his benison he gave. So he therefore, with that idea, he is doing his karma also. It is also required that a sapling or a seed is taken in and that is planted there before his cave, and he blesses the plant. Okay, he's like a child. He is blessing the plant. This is fine. Then here is a very important word that comes. The word is but. But means when everything is going smoothly like this, but immediately some thought comes. Some other forceful obsession or some other forceful idea comes into his mind. But he thought that the rain it needed, that the root may drink and swell. God, I pray thee, send thy showers, so a gentle shower fell. So he thought immediately that probably why the poet has chosen an olive tree as an example in this poem. It's just a thought. It could be any tree. He could have talked about an apple tree also. Maybe in the area that he was living, olive tree was more visible, or olive oil is connected with uh, using for lamp, whatever be it. There could be various reasons, but one of the reasons we think is also that olive tree is a very, what to say, a very strong survivor. It will survive forest fires also, it will survive everything also. It is not very easy to kill a olive tree or destroy it vis-a-vis other trees. Let us say every tree has that quality, every tree is very determined and very gritty, but olive tree also has this powerful art of survival. Okay, so probably that is one of the reasons that this tree is chosen as a example in this poem. So he's saying that the tree needs this thing, water. So therefore, O Lord, send showers. So immediately God gives showers. A gentle shower fell. Lord, I ask for beams of summer, cherishing this little child. Then the dripping clouds divided, and sun looked down and smiled. So immediately he's asking. See, that is why the word here it says the dripping clouds divided. As it is getting rain, water, shower, he immediately says, Lord, I ask for beams of summer. So immediately he wants sunshine for of course, the tree needs sunshine, the tree needs water, the tree needs frost, everything it needs. And he has probably also learnt it in his biology lesson. So he is asking for everything. But what he is asking is that he is asking that immediately, cherishing this little child. So the dripping clouds divided, the sun looked down and smiled. That petition is also immediately granted by the Lord. No sooner that happens, he is again asking now, send it frost to brace its tissues. Oh my God, the hermit cried. Again, choose nicely the words are chosen. Hermit cried. He is craving, he is praying, he is desperate about it, right? Then the plant was bright and hoary. Okay, that was also granted. Bright and hoary because of the grey thing that has come upon the leaves because of the frost only. But at even song it died. So olive tree, which is known for its survival, he successfully killed it. It is not to give a negative connotation to the hermit's original desire, but that is what has happened exactly. Now, this is what will happen when you impose your will upon God. So, we talked about the three processes: asking, believing, and receiving. Very clearly, these stanzas show that the believing aspect is not there in this hermit. Each and everything, obviously, he is very right in asking for olive tree, and for a tree to grow, you have to give time. This sort of a natural growth must be there, and this must be our lesson also. Whatever and whenever you want to get anything in life, also anything that is strong, anything that is natural, anything that has to grow organically, you have to wait patiently and keep on doing your karma. So you plant the sapling. You maybe, if you are in a society, you may even protect it with a fence or something so that a goat doesn't eat it. All that thing you do, and whatever is the general thing that is required for it, you do. But do not be desperate about the growth of the tree and impose whatever you are based on your half-baked knowledge, your will upon God. That is exactly the mistake that we do. In fact, if you take a parallel of how generally parents impose their will upon children, this poem is not any different from that. I want my child to be very good. I want my child to grow very strong. So immediately it has to learn karate. It has to learn music or violin or veena or instrument. It has to sing shlokas also. Then it has to study mathematics. I'll put in that. Then what are you doing? You are exactly doing the same thing to the sapling as this hermit is doing. And you cannot doubt the basic intention of the hermit also. Let us take that. Let us give that benefit of doubt to him, that obviously, like a parent will want the welfare of the child, he also wants the welfare of this olive tree. But here is where the slight shift comes. What are you seeking the welfare of the other person for, and on what basis? The basis or the shifting of the focus is from the child to actually my child. So the shift of the focus is more on me now. That mindness is getting reflected on that more, and that is what is making our desires so desperate. So therefore it slowly tends towards that result orientation that I wanted, and that I wanted is actually pressurizing the other person. That is why Swami Ramatirtha says any form of attachment is ultimately going to cause this sort of a separation. The object will either break, or it will be taken away, or there will be a rupture in the relationship, or that person will die, he says. As though like a strong, what to say, a curse type of a thing, he says, but it's not a curse. He is only saying that it is a law. This is a law. The law of attachment is like that only. So, the purpose may be good and the idea may be good that he wanted olive oil, but he has to, and it is a good thing that other idea is, suppose for argument's sake I am saying, he can always go somewhere and get an olive oil directly. He very clearly wanted a permanent solution for it, so he planted a sapling. So you have to, so if you want to have a long-term benefit, which is the right approach, you have to give it that time only. So that is why even in sattvic happiness it is said, any sattvic happiness which is going to diverge and lead towards the ultimate pleasure also later on, it will start as a poison in the beginning and it will turn as nectar in the end. So initial period you have to go through that struggle. So this is not the parallel of sattvic happiness, but I'm saying that you have to go through that initial period of struggle. It applies to everything. When you want to reduce your weight, you want it immediately, then you do some operation or you do take some capsules or something. All those things may yield a result, but exactly like that only. At even socket diet, it will happen like that. You do yoga, you do pranayama, you do some mild walking, jogging, and other exercises prescribed, and the diet you have to take it properly. How long it will take? I do not know. 3 months, 6 months, that is the prescribed course. It will take. But that type of a growth that you get, that health in your body is organic in nature. Any business also for you to grow, if you want to visualize a high profit and growing of the business, it has to have its period of growth. No, stock market, I'll invest 10,000 and I have to get 10 lakhs and it won't work like that. Any political party to grow and get itself rooted in the minds of the people, you have to have 1 or 2 generation of people working hard for it. Then only it will get established. I'll start a party now and immediately next election I'll win. Then tomorrow I'll become the chief minister. It won't work. So anything for that matter, you have to give its organic growth its time. That is the natural process. But our mind gets into this result orientation, and once that desperation comes, we do certain things that when it is forced like that, as it were, then as it is said in the commentary later, we'll see that God as though hands over the reins to you. See, he is your charioteer. He is driving the chariot very well, but you have to keep quiet and allow him to drive. You have given him the destination, he knows how to take it there. No, this, there, go there, do this, there. Okay, he says you take the reins and you drive, and you don't know how to handle. Why you don't know how to handle? Because you do not know the overall picture. That is what it is. See, most of the time, when we impose our will upon God, it is our desperation, our weakness that is at display there. A person was seeing a butterfly that is emerging out of the cocoon, struggling, and that struggle is there for 45 minutes to 1 hour or whatever it is. That is the struggle it has to go through, and it has to extricate itself out of that fine silk threads there. He could not watch it. It was very painful for him to watch it. So out of pity, he cut that thread slowly so that the butterfly can easily come out. Butterfly came out also, but eventually what happened was the wings were not developed properly. They did not get the enough strength in them. Nature has kept it in such a way that the wings will gain strength only by that process. All the fluid and other things has to spread evenly and properly. Like that is the process. Now, with the idea of even helping the butterfly, mainly coming out of his weakness of emotion. That is why the chapter in Vedanta treatise is called as strength of emotion. Vedanta wants you to have emotions, but emotions should not be a weakness in you. It must be the strength. Now, this hermit, what he is showing is this weakness. So, when you do that, you are not sure of what that resultant will be. That is why the prayer also says, Thy will be done, not my will. But here you are imposing your will upon God. So, like a adamant child which is rolling on the floor and being extremely adamant and wanting jackfruit or something where it is not capable of digesting at that point of time. Let's say it is having a stomachache but it's crying for jackfruit. The mother does not want to give, but it is so adamant and it is so desperate, and it is making such a scenario. Then out of sort of not a very happy mood also, the mother yields to it. Then having eaten that, the condition only worsens for the child. Then what the mother does, gives him a tight slap and then gives him some castor oil or something which he doesn't want. Actually, castor oil is not very easy to drink, but it has to be forcefully given. It is only given because the mother is having extreme compassion towards the child. Exactly like that. You are asking for certain things in life which you do not know at that point of time, but the resultant desire is like this. Obviously, the hermit did not want the sapling or the tree to die, but it died, and it is because of his contradictory desires. Now rain, now frost, now each. See, even if you look at those what you call those transactions that the plant had, whether it is summer, whether it is frost, whether it is rain, there is each and every season is there, right? The rainy season is there, summer is there, frost is there, and you imagine how long it is going to take, month after month after month. It is a beautiful plan of nature that it will be given to it. But you want immediately summer, you want immediately, that means you are playing with the plan of the universe itself. If you do that, if you interfere like that, you are creating havoc, and ultimately your will not survive. Ultimately his will only survive. So what is the lesson again here? If we are able to align our will with the supreme will, well and good. That is what is the starting point of surrender. Even as you have desires, you have to align yourself with that supreme will, because his will alone will be done. Understand that. In the short run, if you impose your will, it may seem to happen something, but ultimately it will cause destruction only. So, be patient and allow that to materialize. Allow that desire to materialize, for which you keep doing your karma. You keep doing your action. See, this is seen in an episode in Mahabharata also. Satyavati is wife of Shantanu, and Bhishma is the elder son, son of Ganga, but he is the elder son. And Satyavati bears two sons, Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. Chitrangada dies in a battle. Vichitravirya is the only surviving son. Vichitravirya is married to Ambika and Ambalika. This is the story. And unfortunately, Vichitravirya also develops disease, maybe because of indulgence, and he dies before there is a son, before there is a offspring. So the kingdom is without a formal king now. Bhishma has taken a vow that he will not marry and he will maintain his brahmacharya, and he will only look at whoever is sitting at the throne of Hastinapur as the king. He will see his father's face there. Like that he has taken pratignya. So he will obviously not become the king. At maximum he can be a caretaker till the time officially a king is there. So Satyavati is now desperate that Hastinapur should have a king. So what we are talking about is certain dharma in that previous yuga, Dwapara yuga, something maybe. There is a process called niyoga, where uh, if the lady is not having a son, particularly applicable to queens, where they are responsible for producing an offspring for the sake of kingdom, and then according to niyoga, the elder brother of the king or the elder brother of the husband can impregnate the lady for this purpose. So there is no karma involved or anything, but it is for the sake of this purpose that it can be done. They had probably that type of power and other thing also to do it, maybe. So invoking this dharma, particularly Rajya dharma, is all very subtle. Invoking this dharma immediately, Satyavati tells Bhishma that it's your duty to do this now. Bhishma says, no, I have to hold on to my pratignya or vow that I will be a brahmachari only and I will not indulge in all these things. This is my sacred promise. I cannot go back on that. Sorry, he says. Then Satyavati thinks of his other son who is sage Vedavyasa. When Satyavati was before marriage also, Parashara and sage Parashara and Satyavati, son was born of them, that is sage Vedavyasa who came as a youth. And the beauty is that he is the avatar of Vishnu who came like that, and Satyavati did not lose her virginity also after that. These are all the stories that are there. But the point is, he is her son. Wherever there is any problem, he himself comes in Mahabharata at various places and tries to give some advice, solution, something like that. And always whenever Satyavati calls him also, he is there available. So Satyavati, out of desperation now, sends word for Vedavyasa. He comes and she explains this is a situation that the kingdom cannot be without king. So we need offspring. So you have to do this. And these two are the my daughters-in-law, Ambalika and Ambika. Vedavyasa, who is embodiment of jnana and dharma, he says, what you ask is not wrong. I will do it. But please give me some time, maybe a year or so, because I am in middle of a tapas. And when I am in a tapas, in that frame of mind that is not conducive for doing this, allow me that and it will be done like that, he says. But she says, no, it has to be immediately done, out of desperation. Think about it. A son or somebody who is going to be born, he can be named as a king, but he is not going to rule the kingdom. Still, it will be in the hands of the ministers and the caretaker. It may take a few years, even at least if you give a minimum period 12 years, 16 years before he even ascend the throne and sort of start taking some decisions, right? So, one more year added to that, it's not going to make a difference. But Satyavati was so desperate that she forced Vedavyasa to do whatever he was supposed to do, and he shrugged his shoulders and did. And in that state, what happened is the sad history that Ambika closed her eyes and Dhritarashtra was born. Ambalika became pale and Pandu was born. And the tragedy starts from there in a way that it continues, and this is the cause for various things in the Mahabharata that is coming on later. So the episode is recalled only because, remember this, so Satyavati is forcing her will here. So if you have a will, out of your desperation, out of your seeking the fruit of the action, you cannot impose your will. If you impose your will upon God, then He hands over the rein to you. Now, another question may arise here as to, will prayer like this work? Is it that if we petition to God, it will happen? The answer is yes. The formula is the same. We are not going to deviate anything away from what we have said so far, that you have to ask for something, and whatever is your desire which is in alignment with His will, you have to fixate it and rise above the desire for it to happen. So rising above it can be done through a deep thought, or like what is said in that Ananya Chinta also, or it can be done through karma also. So the karma is also nothing but a worship towards God only, if you look at it this way. Again, visit the lecture of Yajna, where we said this is actually Yajna. Yajna is a purified action which is done oriented towards that goal. So it is going to happen. So prayer has a value, prayer has a virtue. But what is real prayer? Prayer is not imposing your will upon God. That is why the prayer is thy will be done. Thy will be done. So even as you see, think about it in a very subtle way. Even as you talk about your problems to God, I am having this problem, that problem, solve it for me. My daughter is not getting married, my son is not getting a job. Please do this, please do this. Like that, we can reduce that prayer to a beggary. And out of the desperation, when we pray and pray and pray, we see that probably it is not happening also. Go back to that creative process where we said ask and believe. When you ask for certain things to God, think about whether you are really believing in the God as He should be believed. Who is God? If you ask anybody, they will say He is all-knowing. He is all-merciful. He is all-compassionate, right? So the moment you say, I am suffering, why are your eyes not opening? Why don't you save me? Why don't you protect me? Why don't you help me? That means you are indirectly saying that you are not compassionate. And the moment you are saying, I have this problem, I have that problem, that means you are saying, you don't know, I am telling you my problems. That means you are also demoting God's level from the level of all-knower to that He doesn't know something I have to say. So, this was what happens. So, that means it is not outwardly known, but inwardly, invariably, our faith factor is not there. I mean, not there means it is not as it should be. Still you believe, you can go to temple and other thing, but there is because of your personal desperation and other thing, it is not allowing you to have that faith and surrender. That is what is actually happening. So you are actually delaying the process by imposing your will upon God. Now what happens to other persons who don't believe in God? Will prayer work? That's not the discussion of the poem also here. But for all those people, we can say Vedanta says, okay, you need not posit a God, you need not outwardly pray for him, etc. But what is that real prayer is? That awareness of the mysterious process that is sustaining this universe. You may not posit a providence, but you are aware of the provisions, right? Whatever you are having, whether it is the temperature and pressure maintained within you and the temperature and pressure maintained outside, how your alimentary canal functions and how your fingers are functioning, nervous system is functioning, how the sun is shining and seasons are changing, each and everything that is happening within you and without you is actually working in a very beautiful, synchronized and orchestrated way. Mysterious is the process. We do not understand. That is the point. If you are all-knower, you will know the totality, but you are not all-knower. You know only your desire. Beyond your nose, you do not know anything. Based on that limited vision, you are saying something which is good. Exactly the same way the parents, how they impose and say, this is what is good for my child. They do not know. Out of the desperation that it is my child, you impose certain things which probably is not really in the good of the child also. But everything is camouflaged in terms of your duty and your love for the child. It is basically my attachment to my thoughts as to what I feel is correct. This is what exactly we impose our will upon God like that. So we do not know this totality. See, if a person was traveling along the road, he saw the pumpkin creepers along the way. The pumpkin creepers are very small in size, but the fruit or the vegetable that is growing is very big, right? So he thought to himself, what a very funny creator this God is. Such a small plant and such a big fruit or a vegetable he has given. And he laughed and he was going. And as he was traveling, he felt tired and under a banyan tree he was sleeping. When he was sleeping there was a breeze and the fruit of the tree fell on him suddenly and he woke up with suddenly he woke up. And then for a moment it struck him, a small fruit. The tree has a small fruit and it fell on him and it hit him hard. And he thought, my God, this big tree, if only it had that big vegetable or a fruit like the pumpkin, And if it had fallen, what would have happened? So he then came to this conclusion that whoever created and whatever design he has created, that is the best. We do not know the mystery of how it is created, and whether through our limit. So you always remember, your intellect is very limited. However much you develop, and you need to develop also, you cannot fathom it. That is why when you grow from the level of gross intellect to subtle intellect, gross intellect can understand the laws of nature and understand what are the laws that governs the universe, and what is the, let us say, the law of gravity, what is the acceleration there, law of various dynamics, thermodynamics, everything it can understand. But why is law of gravity kept at 9.8 meter per second square and not 10.8 or 8.8? That we do not know. Why does only two atoms of hydrogen combine with one atom of oxygen to form water? That we will not know. We only know that H2 plus O2 will become H2O, that you will know, that's all. But who fixed that? And why is it like that? So at that point of time, the intellect has to open it up and stand aghast in that wonderment. Wonderment is what is beyond your intellect. Ashcharya, Ashcharya says Bhagavad Gita. So in that wonderment is what you have to take. That is where your surrender will lead you to. So simply do your karma and surrender the will to God. The fruits of action will actually materialize. Whatever you deserve will come to you. So this is where he says, send it frost to brace its tissues. Oh my God, the hermit cried. Then the plant was bright and hoary, but at even song it died. When the hermit to a brother sitting in his rocky cell, thou an olive tree possessest, how is this my brother tell? The word given here is also rocky cell. That means probably the environment there is more unconducive than this person's place. Rocky cell. Okay. But in that rocky cell, what has happened? The tree has come. How is this my brother tell? This is very interesting. I have planted one and prayed now for sunshine, now for rain. God hath granted each petition, yet my olive tree has slain. Most of the times, Swamiji has mentioned in his experience, and that's what we are saying, because many people talk to him. Many parents come and say, see, I tell him to study, I tell my son to study, he's not saying. I am saying don't watch TV, he's still watching TV. And I am saying that learning Vedas and Sanskrit is good, he is not doing that. All the time I am telling him what is good for him. Swamiji only has to tell that person, the problem is with you, not with the son. It is because of your extreme imposition that it is not happening. So he says that the children grow out to be either vegetable or rebels. If you force yourself upon your children, one of these two is most probably is likely to happen. Either the children become like a vegetable without any sensitivity, like a vegetable does not have any awareness. They will be molded in such a way that they are not aware of even the basic things happening around them, and because you are actually taken out their inspiration, enthusiasm, thinking and intellect, and forced your thoughts upon them to mechanically go in certain way. So they become like a vegetable. Or if that is too much for the other person to take, he will rebel and go against you. He will wait for an opportunity and probably even leave the house also. Now that's the parents firmly believe, genuinely believe whatever they are doing is for the good of the children, and they do. Probably the execution is exactly the opposite. And this is exactly what this person says here. Not any different from that experience. I have planted one and prayed now for sunshine, now for rain. And he says, God has also granted each petition. That is the beauty. He is saying, God has granted each petition, yet my olive tree has slain. So he does not really understand how the resultant desire functions. God will grant each petition, but overall picture, if you see that you have only asked for the death of the plant, he had granted that petition also. Said the other, I entrusted to its God my little tree. He who made knew what it needed better than a man like me. This is given in italics, as I said in the last class. Whatever is the most important line in the poem, Swamiji has highlighted it by giving it in a different font or in a different style. The other hermit said, I entrusted to its God my little tree. we can only plant the sapling or we can only plant the seed. We are not the creator of the sapling or the seed. That was not created by you. So you will not know what is required. You can do the basic karma with the material that is given to you. You are not the creator of the material. You are not the overall custodian of that also. So he who made that sapling, who made that seed, it is he, someone, he made that, knew what it needed better than a man like me. So therefore the entity that is coming back to that provisions, we are aware of all this provision. So even whether a person believes or doesn't believe in God, you can always visualize if everything is functioning meticulously in order. You can always understand that there has to be all governor or all controller who knows all the laws and makes it function so meticulously. So that positing, you can call it God, call it Almighty, call it nature, call it whatever way you want to understand. You can always but understand that there is some superpower which is far greater and superior to my individual capacity, my individual power, my individual intellect, that is there. So he who made knew what it needed better than a man like me. This is exactly surrender. Surrender is to think up to the level that you can intellect and think, but understand that vast area of ignorance that lies beyond it. There you have to surrender to that supreme will. Even at the relative level, when you don't know medicine, surrender to a doctor. When you don't know law, surrender to a lawyer. Don't dictate your terms to doctor. Don't ask him to prescribe medicine according to what you want. He may still give and your disease may not go. Just you go to the doctor, tell the problem and submit to him, he will give the solution. Like that it is. Even at the relative level, this works. He who made knew what it needed better than a man like me. Laid I on him no conditions, fixed no ways and means. So I wonder not my olive thriveth, whilst thy olive tree did die. So do not put conditions. If you put conditions, it's a bargain. It is not a surrender. It is not devotion. It is a transaction that you are having. So this person says, laid I on him no conditions, fixed no ways and means. So I wonder not my olive thriveth. My olive tree is thriving, whilst thy olive tree did die. Sabin Baring-Gould. We will just listen to Swamiji's commentary.
Two hermits planted saplings to grow olive trees. They needed olives to extract oil for their prayer. One of them prayed for rain and sun and frost to cherish his plant. God granted all his prayers, but the plant perished. Whereas the other asked for nothing. He left the plant to God's care. That plant grew into a tree and yielded olives. So it is with life. If you dictate your will to God, project your desires upon God, you will gain nothing. Instead, perform your obligatory duties and surrender them to God's will. You will then be provided in every way. The Lord's mysterious power sustains this vast universe. Everything works so meticulously, perfectly. The human intellect cannot conceive how different things and beings orchestrate themselves into the melody of harmonious coexistence in this universe. One ought not to disturb this harmony by one's personal preference and interference with nature. If you choose to assert your individual ego, the Lord then hands you the reins of control. You then lose his grace and benevolence. Conversely, when you dissolve your ego and surrender to the total scheme of nature, you will receive the Lord's blessing.
Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः।